This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Sharp, and welcome to this very special edition of The Aware Show. We're glad to have you there. Previously on our show, we featured the Arthur G. Dozier School for Boys, a now defunct state-run reformatory school which operated in the Panhandle town of Marianna, Florida in the 1900s. Well, on part one of our show, we interviewed two men who were detained at Dozier and now call themselves the White House Boys, a name that describes the building where Robert Straley and Andrew Puhle were assigned to live and where both men now recall chilling accounts of what happened to them and others at the school.
We were taken into a black sedan and driven over just a block away to the White House. And it was a long, narrow building. You went in a side door, they lined you up against the wall, and then they took you through a doorway. There was a fan up there, a large industrial fan, and they would turn it on. It made a huge racket. I was at the end of the line, which was not good. You wanted to be at the first of the line to get in and get it over with. Otherwise, you were going to hear everything till those boys were beaten. And they took the first boy in, and you could hear grunts and then groans, and then that turned into screams, and just, oh, God help me, Mama, you know, and just noises I'd never heard before. People in real pain, you know, and I guess you would have had to have been a person that was in war or an ambulance attendant or something like that to really hear people screaming like that. And they just led me in there. It was like being in a dream that you couldn't stop for some reason. They took me in, and there was a army cot, an old army cot, and you placed your hands on the rails, turn your head to the side, don't let go over the rail, don't set up, don't scream, or we'll give you more. So I got down on the bed, and this one-armed man, Mr. Tidwell, started beating me. I couldn't see what he was beating me with. The first 7 or 8 licks was so hard, it knocked me down this far into the bed. And I thought, what am I being hit with? You know, a 2x4? You know, I couldn't imagine. And I was stupid enough to let go of the rail and turn around and take a quick look, and it looked like a barber strap. You know, at first was my first impression. And so immediately when I did that, they jumped on me. And I got maybe 10 more licks. I think I got 35 or 40 lashes, you know.
The doctor came to give the boy his vaccination shots, and the boy started freaking out. And he said, the boy's saying, no, 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 and he's crouching down, and he's backing up and trying to get away from the needle and the doctor. And the doctor grabbed him up and just started slapping him, and he said, shut up, shut up, shut up. So I'm sitting there just terrified.
Now on Aware, we have joining us here in our studio, Mr. Elmore Bryant, a former mayor of Marianna, Florida, and also a former employee at the Dozier School for Boys. Next, we have Mr. Lewis Jennings, NAACP Director, Area 1 and 2. And also, joining us a little later on the show, we'll have Mr. Dale Landry, Chairman of the Florida State Conference NAACP Criminal and Justice Committee. He'll be joining us by phone. These men are community activists who have helped uncover the truth about Dozier. They have also played a significant role when the University of South Florida's Archaeology Department uncovered several graves on the property of Dozier. Well, tonight we will examine the community's reaction to Dozier. How has the tale of Dozier impacted Marianna? And what happens next? Where do we go from here? That and more to come. But for right now, welcome, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us in our studio.
Thank you.
We'll start with you, Mr. Bryant, because as we mentioned in our opening, you've been the mayor of the school. You've worn really many hats in this area of Florida. But more specifically, want to get to you about you actually working at the school. Tell us when that was and what your experience was there.
I worked at the school in I started about 1991 and 92. I started as a dropout prevention teacher. Made the application, had no idea I was going to get a job. That was just the adult side. As a youngster, I played football at the football field at Dozier. So it kind of brought home many memories I had of walking the campus when I became a teacher. And I was very successful in what I did, appealing to young men to want to pass the GED and go back home with credits. And we found out that those young men who passed the GED seemed to stay out of trouble if they were able to be successful in doing that. And that was a good feeling for us.
Very good. Now you're not new to what's been going on with the uncovering of bodies being found at the school, or graves, we should say, the remains of boys who, some of which were allegedly killed. So what I want to bring home with you, Mr. Bryant, is you're aware of a lot of the historical hearsay, a lot of the historical fact and that sort of thing. We want to turn to you for the African American perspective now, if you will, because on our previous show we had an opportunity to talk with two of the white men who were at the school and tell horror stories about their experience there. What do you know of what happened to boys who went to the school, particularly black boys?
To give the viewers a good understanding of how the campus was laid out, during those years of Dozier, it was segregated just like the public schools were. The north side of the campus is where the blacks were. The south side of the campus is where the white boys were stationed. The duties were a little different on the north side than they were on the south side. On the north side of the campus, the black boys farmed, they learned to lay bricks, and some of them became very skillful in masonry work. Some worked on the farms, raising farm animals. On the south side with the white boys, they mostly worked in the laundry. They did, when animals were killed, they did the procuring and worked in the slaughterhouses and that kind of thing. So as a kid, that was a fear of going to Dozier. I can't remember from the time I was old enough to go to elementary school, only one or two boys in our neighborhood actually went to Dozier on the black side. And that's what you would like for me to speak more from. There was a fear because of the one or two did go, talked about the beatings and the hard work, and the people in the community always would refer to that as if we didn't behave, that we would end up at that reform school. So that was a growing up thing with us, and we watched how, at that time, this was before the years of the Bobby M years, there was no fence. And we knew something of fear had to be put in that many boys, the black boys, probably 200 or 300. There was no fence. They walked in groups. They went to the movies. They went to the bowling alleys. So listening at the 2 or 3 boys that had been, that was enough for us. And we decided.
But that doesn't sound bad to say they went to bowling alleys to the bowling alley and movies and things like that. I guess I'm not trying to make necessarily sound bad, but I'm just saying, from the sound of those kinds of things, it doesn't make it sound as though some of the allegations that.
Those are the good parts.
Okay.
Those are the good parts. And there were some good parts, and boys that didn't get in trouble when they were there, they enjoyed those good parts. But then there were some horror stories always were told by the 2 or 3 boys that went there. And of course, there's some things that we could see that actually work, because we'd rather be in school every day wherein those boys had to work on the farms and take care of those animals, and being away from their families, if they would run, that's when the boys really told you the horror stories of how they would turn the dogs loose on them. So it wasn't they smile and howdy howdy.
Well, they also talk about rape. They talk about torture. They
rape.
talk about slavery. They talk about murder.
The slavery part came perhaps from I wasn't there, alleged to have happened that at certain times some of the officers there would take boys to their farm to work and they weren't paid anything. The next thing is they stopped that now, but they had a big market of growing pigs and cows, and they would disappear. So the boys didn't get to enjoy a lot of that because it's alleged that they were walking away. Let me say that. So hard work and the trouble you met when you ran kept our minds on not going to Dozier.
Okay.
So it wasn't a picnic.
I got
We
you.
could find other places to have a picnic. Some boys really would come out and say, "You don't want to go there," and we didn't want to go there. The old people had really put a fear in our minds about Dozier.
Mr. Jennings, to get you in this, being with the NAACP Area 1 and 2 in the area, tell us what you have found in talking with and or the historical perspective of what was going on with Dozier that you have heard and that your organization has been involved in up to this point.
Absolutely. Let me just start with this, Dee Dee. Say thank you for having us on the set this evening to talk about such an important topic as we now have learned and continue to learn through research and through our effort to try to uncover more of this tragedy story. And also let me say up front that I am not from Marietta, okay?
Yes.
In fact, I came to Florida from New Jersey, but just to be clear, I'm also original from Alabama, so I'm not unaware of the miscarriage of justice that happened to our young black men, and especially in the South, and quite frankly, in some of our northern cities as well. But after coming to Florida and getting involved in the NAACP, and then becoming a part of the Florida State Conference Executive Committee as an area director, covering that particular area, and getting involved with people like Mr. Bryant, and learning the horror story of Dozier School for Boys really is a chilling effect when you start to uncover that these young men were sent to this school for minor offenses. And the worst part of it is I found out through research and talking to people was that the family member didn't know what happened to their loved one after they left home to go to this school, who we've also found later that was either murdered or died, and they were buried in unknown graves and unmarked graves, and then just kind of forgot about this, like they never existed, okay, until someone wanted to purchase that land for the Dozier School for Boys at a very reduced land value, if you will. And even then, there was no concern for the boys or consideration for the boys that were buried on this ground until the NAACP and other interest groups like the USF and other started to ask questions about this burial site. That became a very interesting topic now. What happened to a lot of the young boys? And that started this concern movement about the boys.
I see.
And let me add one point on. They're so few of leadership men in the community now. And I take my hat off to the president. I don't know what we'd do if it wasn't for the NAACP, what few we have left, because guys been there a long time, like myself and Mr. Jennings coming up. We want to pass it on. But these guys came from all over the Panhandle and trying to, and they didn't have to do this, but like I said, very few leaders we have now. They came from Pensacola to all over the districts to meet in Marietta because we wanted to bring closure. Even before they came, Mr. Jennings, Mr. Landry came to Marietta to support me as I stood before the county commissioners, because there were some forces that was trying to push this as, no, we don't need an investigation. We don't need it. We already had one. But these gentlemen, and you can hardly find one man that will stand with you now. So my hat's off to this gentleman and Mr. Landry.
Our hats off to you.
They came and stood before that county commission in another county.
Right.
And some of these counties are dangerous. But they came and stood like men. They didn't have to do it, because every time we've had trouble, it seemed like the brothers are very few, but they don't mind if they are true NAACPers. They don't mind standing up. And I'm glad you called his attention to that, because I think about it. You know, these guys didn't have to come to me.
Right. Yeah, and thank you for that, Mr.
And
Bryant.
you especially don't want to come with the dangerous things.
Want to get you turn back to some of the historical perspective and what we're seeing here today. Myself and our producer, Dr. Gail Fraser, and our director, Mike Rowan, had an opportunity to go on location to Marietta, Florida, and what you see on this campus, it's my personal experience as a journalist and just thinking as a mother and my child going to school. From the outside, it's very pristine, it looks clean, it looks nice, but that's from the fence. That was probably what some parents would have thought about their children going to their boys going to this school to supposedly correct wayward behavior. It was a reformatory school. But on the inside, what was going on, according to historical records and accounts, were very different. As we mentioned, horror stories coming out of here. So what you see today is on the white side, a very clean campus where things seem to be being very well kept. But on the side of where the blacks stayed, it is kind of dilapidated. Buildings are falling in, caving in. It doesn't seem to be as much going in to preserve what was going on there, even though that's the side where skeletal remains of several boys have been found. Do you know why we have that discrepancy of one side being well kept, the other side kind of falling in?
Yeah, I love the comment was made by Mr. Jennings in a previous setting that you want to forget the dark side, and the black side was the dark side. So let's forget all this hard work. Let's forget all this raising the pig pens, and let's forget this. Here's a new school built over here, but there was no new school built on the right side. They built I believe it was a library on the last thing was built on that side, and that is being used now by the Jackson County School Board. Pretty nice. But all the other buildings, they just let them go down, because that was a story that we want to forget. It's the same principle that I find in the South that and that goes for big cities as well as small, no big city school systems wanted to build a new school where there was a black school. We want to forget this site here. Let's find a new place. So we don't want to build up over here. We want to forget this, because you got the assume that there were bodies buried over there. You had This was the place where the dirty work went on, and there was no new building. There was a new dentist's office and everything else on the other side. So let's build up this side. Let that go. We want to forget this ever happened. And I appreciate him bringing out that comment like that.
Okay, sure.
Make one
Go
other
ahead, Mr.
comment
Jones.
reference to the boards, and as we do our research and talking to various people that live this era, we finding that there is other information surfacing now reference to the secondary schools. Because we have always been told, and we've been looking at this from a standpoint of the young boy went to this reformatory school for misbehavior, even of the minors offense, but yet misbehaved. Now we are finding out through research and through other means that there may be another side to this story that we have not yet uncovered as it relates to the secondary school.
Right,
and we really want to thank Mr. Bryant for doing a lot of research and a lot of this uncovering in there. But I do want to end with one point that comes to mind when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King, who said in his day of preaching and teaching that freedom, and this thing kind of relates to the same thing when we talk about the dark side and we talk about why this side and why that side. Freedom has never been given by the oppressor, always demanded by the oppressed. And until you have people like Mr. Bryant and others standing in the gap and demanding that something is done, the oppressor just sweeps that under the rug, pretend that's never happened. That's a chapter closed. Y'all don't need to know about that.
I
Know what I mean? So.
I see. Mr. Bryant, coming back to you, we have Mr. Puel and Mr. Straley who came to the Aware Show and they told their stories, what they lived through. You've had an opportunity to meet some of the black boys who went to the school. What did they tell you about their experience there?
The Florida State Conference, NAACP, held a meeting at the site. And I think we have some pictures of that on the visit. That was where the first cottage is there, going up on the black side. They met under that tree, about 8 of the 9 that came to Marietta that day. And you had to be a pretty tough cookie to listen to their stories. As this old man, the oldest one in that, I don't know if his name was George, I can't remember, but he was in his right mind, crippled all up, but he could point out the trails that he used to take and going to the pig pens, and what he saw.
And what did he tell you? I know that's
he was
hearsay,
talking with
but
the group.
yes.
What he saw was sometime that was told to him, don't say anything, don't ask any questions. And he said that looked like a hand in that pot going to the pig pen. He said he was told don't ask any questions, do anything. Up the road from that, he pointed out, and I know he had to be right because I knew where it was. He pointed out the place where he was beat several times. And you'd have to be a pretty tough person, not for your heart to soften as they sat there under that big tree. And we visited that same spot. When you drive up on you did the a promotion piece on the other side in front of the fence. But right behind you, if you drive up the campus,
Yes.
right to the end of the top of the hill, there's a big pine tree. That's where they all assembled, and each one got a chance to talk and tell their stories. And they could point, because I knew where the beating place was there. That was on the black side.
And if the white boys were saying that they were treated the way they were, we can only imagine. And they say that the black boys were treated even worse.
Even worse. I saw, we finished there, and then we went to the church and let them talk. Then we went to St. James Church and let them talk. And the next week we had some of them came back and some of the whites came. And I saw grown men stand up and tell stories, and I saw the latest crying, and that's been, even though it's 20 years ago when that happened, there were many wet eyes in there just listening to these guys tell their story. And so many guys were reluctant to come forward. But as it kept being in the paper, and the NACP was still trying to listen to both sides. We weren't taking sides, we were listening to both sides to trying to find some point of closure for this. It was just hard to sit through and not feel sorry for those guys as they told the story. And I just felt real good when there were so many obstacles they had to jump through, because a lot of people determined this wasn't going to go anywhere. This was just some guys running their mouth. But when they were recognized at the Capitol, and I was there to see it, and I had heard the same stories told right in my presence, and then at the Capitol, they was able to tell the governor and all, it was standing room only, these same black guys. It was amazing.
Don't want to just make the show top heavy to you, Mr. Bryant, but I do want us to make sure that we get an opportunity to reference some of the video that we did shoot on location in Marianna, Florida, to look at some of that video of the school itself. You, again, look at the black side and you see the dilapidated buildings and that sort of thing. But Mr. Bryant, you've had a chance to go in those buildings before they begin to cave in and have obviously become to a point where you can't go in anymore, or it wouldn't be certainly not encouraged for you to do that. You were able to go inside those buildings that I'm talking about right now. What would a person see if they were to be able to go inside from your eyes? You talked about some of the beautiful woodwork. You talked about some of the beautiful flooring that obviously these young men themselves.
The masonry work in there is unbelievable. You couldn't afford to pay to do a house like they've done that. The material they use a lot of time was made. Even the furniture they used was made. You couldn't afford to pay a person do that kind of work in your house now. It would be too expensive. They learned a lot of skills, and just to the north of that film that we drove all the way up, like we was going to a dead end.
Yes.
One of the most beautiful track fields was right over to the right. It's all grown up. Beautiful track field. There was basketball courts at each cottage. All those have gone away. When I was just coming out of college as a teacher, I was invited to speak out there because I would just start coaching. And one of the house parents asked me to come out and speak for some function they had at the dining hall. And a beautiful dining hall, all falling in. So what you would see is there a little left of the beautiful work on the walls, the material tables the boys made, and they still, in the back rooms, they haven't moved those out yet. They still have the double bunk beds that they use. And you know, there was no privacy. You had upstairs and downstairs, so anybody looking at the shots, you're gonna take up the upstairs building. That's where the cottage parents live. Cottage parents live on one side, cottage parents on the other side. Downstairs where the boys live, one the cottage parent be on, one off. Now imagine housing 40, 50 boys by yourself and no fence. There was no fence there. So you will still see the signs of, there was names scribbled on the wall, and some of the work that was done and the things that they made there. But I just never liked to, even when my brother-in-law was working out there, I just never liked to, even from a child, I didn't like to visit out there much. And certainly when I got older, knowing.
There are tales that the town itself, some of the residents who lived back then, we're talking the early 1900s to the mid 1900s and that sort of thing, would actually help capture the boys if even they tried to escape for some of the goods that were grown on the farm. And those sort of stories are coming out of what happened. So it was kind of like, in some regard, people were aware of what was going on, but said nothing because they actually benefited from proceeds, according to reports.
Some things you heard people say, some things as a child I did get a chance to witness that. And I think we have a shot of that when you go down Marion Street at the bottom of the hill. There was two tall towers there, used to hold peanuts. But the old peanut shell building, that was where the peanut hulls would go in this, after they've been down a belt, they would come over in this building. Well, that was, in the wintertime, that was a place to be nice and warm. And when you were nice and warm, you could rest a while if you was running, because most time, you remember, boys weren't just from Mariana or Quincy or Pensacola. These boys from Jackson, at one time you didn't have one school. They was from Jacksonville, Miami, Tampa. So if 5 boys from somewhere else decided to run, they would just run. They didn't know where to run. Sometimes they'd run right up in the arms of their college parents. But they would, if they made it down the railroad track, which wasn't far from the campus, and was able to make it to this shed, you know, they passed the news to each other, a good hideout. When you go in the shed and dig down the peanuts, that kept you warm, because most time they only had a T-shirt. They locked the jackets up, make sure they wouldn't be warm if they did decide to run. I actually saw them that was an old man caught about 5 or 6 of them. What he did, he closed the back door of the shed and closed the front, and then he called the police. And that morning about 7:30, we saw him coming out and being placed in police cars. Some people said they didn't get paid. They've denied that, and I'm not in a position that I want to argue the point.
That.
But I'm just telling you what I saw, and I was in my right mind. I saw him actually catching that.
And there are actually also tales from our previous Aware show from the gentlemen who say that they spent time detained at Dozier, that some of the boys were actually taken off the Dozier school's premises and taken to farm other people's property. So that was like slave labor.
That I think we mentioned that in one point here, that that's where the notion come, as they describe in the place, brutal treatments and slave. That is where that come from. People did take those boys off campus. They did.
Do you have anything? I'm sorry.
That was all of this we're talking about was before the fence was put up. The fence was put up after the incident with Bobby M. That was before.
There had
this
even
time.
been stories told that some boys were let loose and purposely hunted down. I mean, I'm just telling the allegations of what was going on there.
Young man that was a minister, he just died. He said the worst thing could happen is that you were crazy enough to decide to run, and the dog boys had a place right about where you did that shot, looking up to those 2 pipes where the laundry. I showed you where the laundry was.
Yes.
It was a little section up there, right to the right. That's where the dog boys. Dog boys usually came from with the local prison, and they were trustees, so they would be housed there. And if the boys ran 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, it made them very angry. So the boys all told the story of how they would get almost to you. they're supposed to hold the dogs, they would turn them loose.
Oh my goodness.
And that was quite a incident.
Mr. Jennings, do you have anything you want to add from the historical perspective?
I just want to make a comment, though, reference to all of this. And like I told you before, I'm not from Mariana, but when I got involved in this whole plot, it's been a chilling effect and a learning experience for me throughout, and it's sometimes beyond belief. And I'm going to talk a little just for the viewer's sake, because we referenced this White House, and it took me a while to grasp the White House, what it was primarily used for and why it was called the White House and why you never wanted to go to the White House.
Okay.
Well, now, we had, the black boys didn't get noted for any credit about the White House because, see, they really had their own punishment place on the black campus.
And that area
make that clear.
Yeah, that area right now is dilapidated and completely torn down.
We drove up far as we
drove
could
up
to
and
it, and I
saw
pointed
that.
out to you where it was because
Right.
I actually got a chance to do sub work over there one day, and I knew that was where the locker was. Well, when they integrated the school, they built a nice brick building all on the white campus for lockup, and the White House always where it was. But there were no black boys over at the White House then. They could take you over there, and when it came close to so that we were gonna have to integrate the school, but they had their own place right up there on that right where you would be taken up there. And this old man told the story, how many times he had been taken in there and almost beat to an inch of his life.
And I guess what you're asking, Mr. Jennings, is specifically, which we did tell in the Aware part 1 of this, that the White House was the place where the white boys were taken, and now some of them claim that, yes, that they were severely punished, tortured, beaten, and some of them even murdered at the White House.
A punishment house, nothing.
The old man, he wasn't talking about what he heard. He was talking about what, and pointed out, and I knew it was there. And I knew the person who was over that department.
And what did they call the area where the black boys on the black side where they were
They
beaten?
didn't have a name until they started mentioning the White House.
Okay.
Where the black boys went, it was just a place to be beat.
I got you.
And it didn't gain any popularity.
Okay. You also took us to an area when we were on location where the graves were found around trees. Can you quickly explain that? Because we've got a gentleman who's going to be joining us by telephone in just a moment to talk about where we are now and where we're going with this investigation. But I just want to make sure we give a little historical background about some of the videos that we were able to get.
We've learned a lot with NACP members have been there 2 or 3 times. The old lawyers have been there.
Yes. What's at that grave
and
site?
And what's in that site? What we learned is that in most black areas where the cemeteries are, there seem to be cedar trees. And if you notice around this thing, I don't think they would have volunteered like that, but the complete area is outlined as cedar trees. And the Dr. Erin has marked off some of it, and she dug in this area. But she also did
Dr. Erin, talking about from the University of South Florida, who's been excavating or exhuming
and we got to be very
skeletal remains. So that's the cedar tree. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just wanted to give our viewers an idea of what we're talking about here with Dr. Erin and what she's been doing with the University of South Florida. But getting back to the circle, sort of like, of what's going on with the cedar trees and where the bodies or the skeletal remains have been found. Tell us the significance of that.
Well, never in my life had I learned that how she used the machines to see if the earth has been disturbed. And you can tell, I don't care how you try to plant it back, she has the machine, she can dig and she can tell what was there, how long ago it was, and so many things you learn. But that was fascinating to me because then I started riding through the rural area looking at some of the rural churches. So that must be a thing that the cedar trees usually are located around burial places.
That's
and that's all that was kept clean up to where we were then.
So
they was growing up.
has it been understood whether the bodies or the skeletal remain, the boys were buried under the trees, or whether the trees were planted after they were
evidently the trees were there all the time.
Okay, so they would take them out and possibly bury them there.
Because she would tie a ribbon around the tree if she found a place that she was interested in digging.
And we now know that more than 50 skeletal remains have been found.
And you also know that the place where the crosses were that kept appeared in the paper, the cross was in perfect shape, in perfect lines. A lot of those places, there was nothing there in there. We found out that they were placed there years later by some Boy Scouts who wanted to do a good thing and place them there out of respect. But there was no name, no nothing on it, but just a piece of iron welded to another piece of iron and down in the ground.
Okay, I want to come to you, Mr. Jennings, and we're going to be joined by another gentleman by phone in just a moment to bring us up to date with where we are now. Where are we now with what's going on with the NAACP and looking into what has happened at the Dozier School for Boys?
I think it may be appropriate, though, if we ask Mr. Dale that question, because what I would tell you is what I've been told by Mr. Landers and others as they look at and have conversation around the disposition of those remains that you talked about, working with the governor, cabinet, and other interest groups like USF and the CFO and the Attorney General and the FBI's and the County Commission, all those people. So I think Mr. Landers is going to be able to clarify a lot of that, because he in Tallahassee is working with the governor, cabinets, and all these other interest parties to talk about the disposition of where we go from here with the remains that we have been located. So I would refer to him on that.
Let's get to that right now then. We are
Well, let me say one comment before
go ahead, Mr. Bryant.
Thank you for that. People will ask, why is this television outfit coming way to Miranda to take pictures? Why are they doing this on, we going way to Pensacola to do this? Why Dr. Fraser and Dee Dee Shop came to Miranda and they outtake? Because we want to know, just like the Jews continue to tell the story of the Holocaust, then we want to continue to tell the story of what happened at Dozier. And I appreciate you coming to Marianna, Dr.
Thank you.
And the gentleman that was taking the picture, he did excellent. He was so patient. And Dr. Fraser, thank y'all for coming to Marianna, because we want the story told. The NAACP's position is we want to bring closure.
I got you.
And we're not trying to take any sides.
The thing now about Marianna, you've been a mayor of Marianna, and you've been very active, very, very busy in the community for years, Mr. Bryant. We thank you for your years of service. Tell us what Marianna is like now before we go to our guest standing by on the telephone here, Mr. Dale Landry, Florida State Conference and NAACP Criminal Justice Committee. We'll get to him in just a moment, but just a picture right quick, a snapshot of Marianna now.
Marianna is, we've seen the negative parts of Dozier, but Marianna have a lot to be proud of. Number one, I was the first black mayor. When you come to the federal prison, my name's on the deed. First black man to do some things like that in the Panhandle. When you look at the shopping malls down there at Winn-Dixie, the vote was 2-2. I'm responsible for being there. When you look at the Florida Public Utilities, how big they are and all the jobs they offer, the vote was 2-2. I broke the tie. When you look at Sangamon District, nowhere else in the state of Florida, and I want your viewers to remember that, nowhere else where a black man drew the line. I drew my districts because the city went in default. Now, where's the city now? We were able to bring the city back together because we just had a meeting last week. And what we really would like to see, I would like to see, and I've had a lot of amens on that, is that we'd like to see that land utilized as our future school, one of our future schools. All that beautiful land, and there's nothing wrong with it but we got that old mentality of a stigma, a few of us. But the businessmen are ready to move forward.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mr. Bryant. And certainly now we want to go to the gentleman who we've had standing by on the line now for us. That is Mr. Dale Landry. He's with the Florida State Conference and NAACP Criminal Justice Committee. Thank you, Mr. Landry, for being so very patient and joining us for the Aware Show. Want to get to you and talk to you about, in the first part of this program that we highlighted two gentlemen who were students at this school, and now again on the Aware Show with Mr. Bryant and Mr. Jennings at the NAACP. Something brought up between the shows has been reparations for the young boys, now turned men, who suffered needlessly at this school that they were supposed to go to and actually be reformed. Can you tell where we are now with that, and or where we may be with the investigation going on at the school, Mr. Landry?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. First of all, if I may, and let me get you to that point, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because you asked several questions.
Yes,
First of all, I want
did.
to say thank you again on behalf of the Florida State Conference and NAACP, and on behalf of our state president, Adora Obi and Weezy, and our executive committee at the state level. A couple of things that I want to, for the record, how I got involved in this, and I got involved with it when the University of South Florida asked the NAACP to come in and get involved because they were having problems over there trying to get the work done at the site, and the state was stopping them. And we received a phone call from Dr. Kimberly, and in turn, I called the state president, and she directed me way back, I guess, in when they first got ready to go in. She directed me because they were actually being blocked by elements of people, and it's a small group of people in Mariana that did not want that site dug up. And they wanted to be left alone because they were getting ready to sell that property. All of it, and if you had a chance to visit it and see it, they were selling all of it for $300,000. Now, the fence alone is worth over $300,000. But more importantly, there was a prison on the facility that was just built in the 1990s. That was built for about $5 million, and that was about to go into that $300,000. So I want to make sure we're clear of how the NAACP first got involved, and it was from that standpoint that we came in, got involved with Dr. Kimberly, and we're moving forward. And at the same time, because of that, the state president had me to interview several of the people that were there, because you asked some questions about some of the horrors that happened to the black men, and they did share some of that stuff with me as a part of my involvement. But I wanted to make sure we had clarity. That's how the NAACP got involved. And way back then, and I want to say that was about 2000 and I would have to go to Dr. Kimberly. That was before they even broke ground. That was when, and it wasn't Robert Straley. There was another gentleman, Gene. I don't have his name here, but he was the actual motivation behind this, because he was the one that got the Attorney General to get involved, and it was the Attorney General that called and asked us to go in, and as Mr. Bryant said, that we came in and went in and met in Mariana and spoke out about giving them the opportunity to go ahead and dig, even though, again, they were asking the county. It was not the county's position to give permission, it was the state's. And after, again, getting involved at the state level with the cabinet, specifically with the chief financial officer, CFO, along with the attorney general, and we were able to get the commissioner of agriculture to join in, and then ultimately the governor. That was how we were able to go ahead and get the move to allow them to go in and dig into the site. But throughout that whole period, there was a small element in Mariana that was in opposition, and ultimately we were able to get in and help Dr. Kimberly go ahead and excavate the grave.
With the University of
So I
South
wanted to
Florida.
get us in that place. You asked a couple of questions about the African Americans and what did they go through. As Elmore had said, they met with us under the tree. the gentleman talked about some of the most wickedest sodomization I have ever heard of in my life, to include being sodomized with chemicals. They spoke to rapes. They spoke to being beaten. And one of the places that Elmo was talking about, that was the place over there, it was actually supposed to be, I think it's a small building, a very small building. Mm-hmm. But in this building, they put 7 black boys. And they put them in there for a period of time. One of them died. And they made the 7 boys stay in this, and it was about 7 foot. It was very much like a small room, but it was a shed. And they kept them locked up in there with a bucket used among all of them as a toilet. And they all had to share it along with the dead child. And I forget how long they kept him in there with them. They would not open the door and let him out, but they kept the 7. One died, and they made them stay in there with the dead body. I forget how many days until they ultimately got him out. So on that side, you did have them to go through some of the worst horrors anyone can imagine. And then they transferred them over and started doing the same thing to them over on the south side. A lot of the sodomization you asked about were done in the tunnels. Underneath Dozier are tunnels. And based on the research done by Dr. Kimberly, that is where they sodomized a lot of the boys. They would take them down underneath, and they had actually what they call the weight room that they had where these boys were taken into underneath Dozier. It's the heating elements underneath Dozier. So that's a little bit of that background stuff you were asking about as it relates to the reparations. They have already, the state, they tried to go in for reparations. That has already been denied. They tried to do it legally.
Go ahead.
And for what it's worth, they could not get reparations, and they tried in the federal courts, and the federal court said they had to go to the state courts, and it was my understanding they came back and they denied it.
They're told from Robert Straley and Andrew Pugh, they have been also asking the state if there would be an opportunity to open up the records of some of these boys, black boys in particular, who went to the school, because there are not a lot of well-kept records as to who these boys were. So it's kind of hard to know who's missing and who's not when you don't know who they are. So they've been asking the state to open up those records, even though they're supposed to be sealed by state law, I guess, for 50 years.
No, you don't have that problem based on my research and talking with Dr. Kimberly.
Okay.
And the pursuit that they went into trying to research that information. A lot of that information, you got to remember, again, when we start talking about records repositories, a lot of those records during the era that you're questioning were maintained and kept out at Dozier.
Okay.
And Dozier had a couple of serious incidents that happened. One was fire. But the second part was the old administration building where those records were kept at is still standing. And they went in, we went in, and the NAACP, based on the request of Dr. Kimberly, went in and worked with the DJJ and with the state. And where those records are is in this old administration building.
Okay,
that old
we're going to have to wrap up on time here.
A hazard. And what has happened is, what do you call it, the black mold?
Yes.
It has infested all of those records. I mean, their files, they were open, they were left, and they have become contaminated to the point that I think unless someone wants to pay for it, the state's not going to pay for it.
Okay. Well, we've got to move along here because we've only got a minute or two left, and I have at least one more question for you. I want to ask you about Mr. Landry.
Yes.
The bodies that we've been told now, some of those bodies have been identified. There is right now work underway, I guess, from the University of South Florida to locate family members and or see how they want to lay these skeletal remains to rest for once and for all, and or who would pay for it. What can you tell us about what goes on now?
We're going to have a meeting in the near future with the cabinet. They have discussed that at the last cabinet meeting. I will be meeting with several of the cabinet members along with a ministerial group, and from the NAACP perspective, we're working with them to look at what and how do we want to handle those remains.
Okay.
They will stay at the University of South Florida until such time as we've had that meeting, and the cabinet voted in their last meeting was to let it fall under the Secretary of State, but they delayed the vote on that until we can get ready to come to the next meeting, give us time to strategize and talk, and then we're going in to talk about a plan of what we want to do with not only the bodies, but also with what we're going to do with the remand, with Dozier, the school itself.
Very good. Thank you once again. Dale Landry, chairman of the Florida State Conference NAACP Criminal Justice Committee, joining us by phone on the Aware Show, and we may have you back on at another time. Thank you so much for joining us by phone and sharing that important information with us. Back here in the studio.
Welcome.
Thank you. Back here in the studio again, Elmore Bryant, former mayor, former employee at Dozier, and of course, Mr. Jennings with the NAACP Area 1 and 2. Thank you all for joining us here in the studio.
Thank you for having us.
Just a last remark from you, Mr. Bryant, before we wrap up here. You've got less than 30 seconds.
My one remark would be in Marianna is to let's move forward. There's not one of us as great as all of us. It's going to take a community effort, and I think we're ready to do that.
Okay, very good. Mr. Jennings?
And likewise, I'd like to thank you and Dr. Frazier, because I believe in one phrase, things that get measured get done. So the fact that you all are involved and you are looking into this give me confidence that something will get done. Things that get measured get done.
Especially being able to make people aware of what's going on. And as I've mentioned, right here in our own backyard, we all have a vested interest in trying to get this done, bringing closure, if you will, to family and to the city of Marianna in order for it to heal for once and for all, and also to bring these boys' stories out and give them all closure, the ones who are still alive to speak and for those who are no longer with us for one reason or another. Thank you once again for joining us for the Aware Show. We appreciate the work that you have done on the front lines. We certainly appreciate your time that you've shared with us, Mr. Bryant, in bringing the story to the Aware Show. All right. Well, the last chapter in the story about Dozier has yet to be told, and it has yet to be written for that matter. The investigation into Dozier, once the largest reformatory school in the United States, continues. We know that right now, the University of South Florida has released a 119-page report citing 50 graves have been found. The final report will be released in January 2016. In the meantime, Senator Bill Nelson has called for the Justice Department to investigate what really happened at Dozier. Aware is continuing to look for African Americans who were incarcerated at Dozier. Many of their stories are told in a book called The Dark Days at Dozier Reform School: Rapes, Murders, Beatings, and Slavery. And of course, we will keep you updated about this continuing story at Dozier School for Boys in Marianna, Florida. I'm Dee Dee Sharp saying until the next time, stay informed and stay aware.